H&M, Hershey's, Nestle, Forever 21, Abercrombie, Victoria's Secret, Nike, Disney, Walmart, Samsung, and Apple. Raise your hand if you have ever purchased anything from any of these companies. Well, congratulations, you all have purchased items produced by the teeny tiny hands of children around the world forced to work for little or no pay in extremely inhumane conditions.
Yes.
By purchasing items for your own good, you have indirectly promoted the use of child labor. How is child labor relevant to you, though? According to Lindsay Woolman, in her article, Teen Consumer Spending Habits, teenagers spend more than $200 billion a year on themselves. The more money we spend as teenagers we spend through companies that use child labor, the higher the demand is going to be for the companies to continue to use this practice. As a large consumer myself, but an advocate for human social justice issues, I have spent the last couple of years researching the ways and reasons why companies use this practice. It is apparent that the largest companies that we are purchasing from today are guilty of using child labor. Today, I will provide you 2 examples of companies that use child labor and what you can do to make a difference within this large problem. By the end of my presentation, I hope to get you to think twice next time you are about to purchase from such companies. Everyone's favorite shoe company, Nike. Now that I've given you an overview, I'm going to jump right in and talk about how Nike has used child labor to become one of the biggest shoe companies in the entire world. So, Nike factories are currently in 5 countries. That is Indonesia, Vietnam, South Korea, Pakistan, and China. They have relocated to these areas because of the minimal child labor laws, and this includes a small minimum wage and nothing that protects hazardous working conditions. So Nike has been able to get away with almost all their child labor. I'm going to focus on Indonesia, as they do have a minimum wage of 50 cents an hour, but none of the labor laws in Indonesia are enforced. So children ages 16 and younger in Indonesia, they feel they're coming from impoverished families, so they feel like they need to work, and they work for just 16 cents an hour. They make about $1.60 a day, and in Indonesia you actually need $4 a day to live, so a lot of these children are really malnourished and unhealthy. The average Nike shoes cost about $150, and this is what these children make after 6 months of intense labor. Aside from minimum wage, the conditions within the Nike factory are really unbearable for children. According to Dara O'Rourke in her article in the Boston Globe, based on interviews with more than 4,000 workers in Indonesia, they found widespread physical and verbal abuse, shocking high rates of sexual assault, forced overtime, denied sick leave, inadequate access to medical care, and several reports of worker death. Nike has also been found to force children to stitch soccer balls and other sporting equipment and apparel, and if they didn't comply fast enough, they'd be threatened to be beat or killed. Imagine your brother, sister, or cousin having to do this kind of work. How would you feel? According to Catherine Schmitz in her book, Child Labor, A Global View, as the demand for Nike products increased, so does the need for child labor. It wasn't until 1984 that Nike kind of felt this urgency to relocate their company or their factories from the United States to Asia because of increased demand. But Nike isn't the only company guilty of this practice. I'm going to give you a second example of another company accused of this of using child labor, and that's Hershey's chocolate. So 70% of the world's cocoa is actually from West Africa, and this cocoa is sold to major chocolate companies, especially Hershey's. According to the Food Empowerment Project, Hershey's increased demand for cocoa in Africa has caused the worst forms of child labor, human trafficking, and slavery. And then according to John Roberts in his article, Is There Slavery in Your Chocolate?, many cocoa farmers actually only get paid $2 a day for themselves, so they rely on human trafficking as it's like essentially free labor for help on their farms. They basically go to the most impoverished cities of Africa, promise the families that their child is going to be sufficiently paid and they'll be able to come back with the money they make, but then they take these children far away, force them to work for no pay, and the children hardly ever get to return to their families. Again, imagine your family being deceived and the youngest member of your family having to leave. These are just boys and girls ages 15 to 16. These small children are forced to use chainsaws to clear forests, climb cocoa trees, and use extremely sharp knives to cut bean pods, and carry 100-pound sacks across acres and acres of land. For a 5-year-old, this is immensely dangerous work, and I know at 18, I would not be able to survive doing this. Additionally, they have to spray toxic chemicals on land, and they don't have any protection, so this is really detrimental to the development of the brain and lungs. Hershey's is well aware that of the child labor and human trafficking occurring within Africa, But as chocolate sales rise, Hershey continues to put pressure on West Africa to produce more and more cocoa. And this essentially increases child labor and human trafficking. So now that I've given you 2 examples of which companies use child labor, I'm going to tell you what you can do to make a difference within this large problem. The solution is simple. Increased demand equates to increased need for fast and especially cheap labor, which means for some companies an increased use in child labor. We can do our part by creating a demand for child-free labor goods by not only purchasing only from companies that pride themselves in humane working conditions for all their employees globally. According to the book, The World of Child Labor by Hugh Hidman, you can do your part by decreasing the demand of guilty companies. Use your consumer power wisely. So next time you need sporting apparel, maybe don't go to Nike, maybe go to Adidas. And when you're buying chocolate, instead of buying Hershey's, you can buy chocolate that has the fair trade symbol on it, meaning all employees are treated equally and fairly within the production of chocolate. The spender dollar is powerful. I'm going to give you an example. When Tiger Woods had his marriage scandal, they originally refused to drop Tiger Woods. They actually lost $1.4 million in sales as customers started rebelling against them. And after they started losing money, they ended up slashing his $20 million deal. They took his face off of their products, and they left him with only menial jobs. They then switched to Roy McIlroy, a different golfer, and their sales are back on track. So we should emulate this in regards to child labor. The choices we make as consumers speak. We should stop giving them our dollar, and this will force them to change. The way we spend our money impacts others around the world. Reward the companies that seldom use child labor and punish those that do by not giving them our money. Now that you know what companies use child labor and what you can do to mitigate this problem, I challenge you to think twice next time you're going to purchase from a company that tortures children. Today, I told you about child labor through Nike and Hershey's, and by deciding not to buy from these companies could slowly decrease the prevalence of child labor. Like I stated in the beginning of my presentation, though, Nike and Hershey's are not the only companies that use this method of production. In fact, all those companies do. Therefore, the next time you're about to spend your money on such companies, think twice before you buy this company, and think about whether you want a product that was made by an innocent child that was potentially beaten and threatened to get the product you're about to make or buy. Thank you.